Okay, we're going to do the negative feedback system now. So what you will remember from the kidney, that was quite a long time ago, wasn't it? Bit of a reminder about the kidney. So the hypothalamus is the real key controller. So even though FSH and LH are released from the anterior pituitary, it's going to be the hypothalamus that kind of tells them what to do. So hypothalamus, this is our detector in the system. These are where our receptors are. So not only is the hypothalamus really carefully monitoring your water potential, it's also monitoring the levels of your hormones. So when estrogen and progesterone are low, it will trigger the anterior pituitary. Now you see why we needed to say posterior pituitary for ADH. So the anterior pituitary gland will release FSH. FSH, that's job is to stimulate the follicle. And the follicle will then churn out estrogen. Don't forget, if you're using American sites, they're going to call it estrogen. And then later in the luteal phase, all those bits of follicle that are left behind in the ovary will churn out progesterone. So, negative feedback loop. As the estrogen increases, it's going to feed back on the hypothalamus, which is going to say, don't release FSH, and FSH release is going to be prevented. So this bit down here is negative feedback. So it'll say, don't release any more FSH. Let's not have any more follicles. And during the second half of the cycle, progesterone is pretty much going to do the same thing. It's going to say, right, don't release any FSH. We don't need any more. Now, of course, we've got LH as well. Can't remember even what colour I did LH in. Don't care, I'm going to change my colour. So we've also got LH being released, and estrogen and progesterone are going to inhibit both of those. We also then have, and particularly progesterone, red line. Particularly progesterone is going to limit the LH. So negative feedback is increased, I don't want to say amounts, concentrations of estrogen and progesterone will prevent the FSH and LH release. But don't forget ovulation. Ovulation, the whole thing switches round for who knows whatever reason, where we've got an increased level of estrogen, that really high level of estrogen, going up to the hypothalamus and saying, hey, do you know what? Let's have loads of that. So it's actually going to cause a surge in the levels of that. So this is high estrogen. We're going to get positive feedback. We're going to get the surge, and these two together then will cause ovulation. And all the rest of the time it's a negative feedback system. So why is that important? And the reason that we kind of know so much about this, and it's on the syllabuses, is it's kind of the basis for fertility treatments, and it's also the basis of the opposite, which is contraceptives. So in fertility treatments, effectively quite a lot of primordial follicles start to develop, and eventually one of them just becomes dominant. It's a bit like keeping tadpoles, where you just get left with one really fat one at the end. So one of them becomes dominant and turns into a Graafian follicle, and the rest just sort of disintegrate. As far as contraception goes, the two main contraceptive hormones, whether you're taking them in a pill or whether you're having them implanted or having an injection, those are the two main ones. Now you can see that if you're taking a regular sort of higher quantity of estrogen and progesterone, then they're going to negatively feed back and prevent the release of FSH. Now without FSH being released, there's no follicles stimulated to develop. If there isn't a developing follicle, then inside of that the primary oocyte isn't changing into a secondary oocyte. There'll be no ovulation because there will be no oocyte to release, and without an egg you can't get a fertilisation. So that's how it works as a contraceptive. It works on that negative feedback loop. So by putting either just estrogen, just progesterone, or a combination of two, you can prevent the release of FSH. You've got this negative feedback system acting on the hypothalamus, preventing the anterior pituitary from releasing FSH. If you prevent the release of FSH, no follicle development. And that's kind of it for negative feedback. It is a term that I'm going to mention when I deal with the rest of the sort of post-fertilisation hormones. However, that is kind of it.